All right, for the 4th of July holiday, Congress is in recess. Now, despite calls for canceling it and talk that August recess, which lasts pretty much the month of August, a number of members are saying, you know what, if we're not even near done with our work, let's stay and get that work done. Presidential historian Doug Wead on how many times Congress has been called back into session. Rarely, I guess, Doug, for the whole month do they stay, but we're focused on August right now. But it is unusual, right?
It's very unusual, and for both houses to be called back.
Who does that, though, Doug? Who calls the shots at that sort of thing?
The president. The president has the constitutional authority to call them back. But I was going to say only 4 times since 1933 have both houses been called back. So the Senate's called back more often because they need them to confirm judges and appointments, ambassadors. But it's unusual. It's dramatic.
Yeah, but the president would make the call. Then it's the opposition party that doesn't necessarily have to heed it if it's just to complete a political agenda they don't like, right?
Oh, I think this would be tough because because if it's about health care, you don't want to be the one to own this problem. And if you'll remember late in 2016, let me ask you a question, Neil. Who was the biggest opponent and advocate for changing Obamacare in the waning days of 2016 election?
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. But
and the answer was Barack Obama, because he thought...
But he felt that he knew the collision course it was on, so give him his due. He knew what it was facing. But
he did.
The oddity here, if you think about it, Doug, is that they didn't end up repealing Obamacare. They kept a lot of it in place. I know about the mandate and all of that, but when push comes to shove, there are ways around that, because even the mandate part of it kind of stays. So they could have saved themselves a lot of trouble by getting some Democrats on board, changing the Affordable Care Act mightily, but not gutting it, not doing what Democrats feared they would, right?
You're right. And the loser right now could be the American people. And it's going to be hard for the Republicans to say this is just a Democrat problem. And the Democrats are going to be surprised. It's hard for them to say this is a Republican problem. This is their deal. They've got to pitch in and help change it. It's what they created, and they got to participate in it.
But they're not interested in doing that. Now, you kind of touched on the wrath back and forth at Game of Thorns, and it's really a phenomenal read of what happened and how Hillary Clinton just missed this. But she now is the leader, self-described leader of this resistance movement. There are a number of other Democrats who are not really interested in helping the Republicans out of this. And I always think that comes back to hurt them, doesn't it? Because aren't Americans going to associate whatever problems Obamacare has now with them?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's heartbreaking. I mean, when Bill Clinton said, oh, this is the craziest thing I ever saw, and Donald Trump laughed. He said, boy, Bill Clinton will have a rough night tonight when he comes home to Hillary. That was a calculated moment. That was Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama agreeing together that Bill Clinton would take this on and be the spoiler and attack it in hopes of helping to turn Arizona, where the prices were going to jack up just 6 days before the election. It's too bad. This is playing politics, and people could die, as the Democrats have dramatically said.
That Republicans are getting blamed for the problems with the law the way it is now. Forget about what they're coming up with. And some liberals on this show have tried to say, well, if you think of what they did to sort of decapitate the exchanges and everything, the Republicans are to blame for this now. But I'm just surprised a law that didn't get a single Republican vote is a law that is considered a pain in the you-know-what by Americans who blame Republicans for it. And I found that incredible.
Yes, and I think history has a way of catching up to those things, and the American people can get angry when they finally learn the truth about something. And you can't underestimate the American people. Look what they did last November. Look how they elected Ronald Reagan twice when they were told not to.
By the way, you're a great historian, so help me with this 25th Amendment thing. We had Greg Jarrett as a phenomenal lawyer explaining it. It's unusual. I guess it came into being in 1967 as a holdover years later after the death of President Kennedy. But it was also to deal with presidents who were incapacitated through stroke, like Woodrow Wilson, or advancing polio, like FDR, or for that matter, just a series of heart attacks and poor health for Dwight Eisenhower. But it's never been implemented. In other words, it would take a vice president and cabinet to get the ball rolling, and that never happens, right?
It never happens. And when Ronald Reagan was in the hospital and was unconscious, he was being operated on, George H.W. Bush was the Vice President of the United States, and they had an emergency cabinet meeting. When they came in, he had full authority under the 25th Amendment to take charge. He made a conscious attempt to sit in a different chair. He left the president's chair empty.
Did President Reagan, was he well enough at the time to say, to sign a piece of paper and grant that authority, or was that just understood at that moment?
The Constitution granted the authority. The Vice President would have to take it. He refused to take it. He left that chair empty, and he served as chairman for the purposes of discussion, but he had that empty chair to make the statement, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this yet.
Can't come up roses there. All right, Doug Wead, thank you. Safe Fourth, my friend.
Thank you, Neil.
Doug Wead, Game of Thorns is the book, just a fascinating read of what happened and what sort of just all fell together for Donald Trump and what didn't happen for Hillary Clinton. An enormous chance to hear from both sides and context and their admissions, unlike any of the books on this whole disaster that was that election for Democrats, as any I've seen.